Coming up today on Zestology, we talk long COVID, skin issues, histamine intolerance, getting independent, verified health advice from professionals, and a special secret new product which nobody is allowed to know about. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. Yeah, welcome back to Zestology. Dr. Tina Piers has been on before. She's absolutely brilliant, and I'm so pleased we've managed to book her again. When Dr. Tina came on before, she was one of those guests where straight away I thought, this is someone who really knows their stuff and I can learn a lot of. And since the outbreak of COVID-19, Dr. Tina Piers has been treating those suffering from long COVID, using her expertise in histamine intolerance and mast cell activation syndrome to inform treatment plans. And that's how I found out about her. Obviously, I've got an interest in histamine intolerance, and I've got my own separate little passion project going on, histamineintolerance.net. And that's why I sort of got in touch with her originally. And I've now realised that there's so much to what she does. She's also part of the World Council for Health, as you'll hear, an exciting new initiative bringing independent health advice to millions. I think there's a lot we can learn from long COVID, treatment of long COVID, from Dr. Tina Piers and the way that she's using her expertise in histamine intolerance and mast cell activation as well. But then there's a lot more to this podcast as well, which I think you're going to enjoy very much indeed. So here she is, Dr. Tina Piers on Zestology. Tina, it is great to talk to you again. How are you?
I am really well, Tony, and it's always lovely to talk to you. And thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast again.
Yeah, well, it had such great feedback, the podcast we recorded before. I mean, so many people resonated with so many people and so many people made changes. I learned about ToxaPrevent, which I didn't know before, and I've had quite the impact from taking it.
Oh, have you? Oh, brilliant. Yeah. That's really good. Oh, I'm so pleased to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I really do feel quite different.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. It gets rid of so many toxins in the body, plus histamine. So, I mean, incredible molecule from a volcanic rock. I mean, amazing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I have to say, I think that it's helped kickstart quite the detox reaction in me. Really, I think it's been great. Yeah. So I thought it was a very good product, and with the histamine as well, just excellent. And I think Brilliant. I went away on a lads' weekend after I spoke to you. I took some ToxaPrevent with me, and I sort of was able to, roam free with the food and drink for a few days and not worry about it too much, which was nice. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. There is also another one on the market that's a liquid spray, and it's made by Touchstone, and that one is very well absorbed. So again, if people are fed up of swallowing tablets and things, it's a really nice alternative.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Good to have in your handbag. If you're a woman and you're going out, you might eat something that is a little bit higher in histamine. You can just spray some in your mouth.
Yeah.
And it helps. It definitely helps. I found it very useful. So yeah, good.
And it's just so interesting because, I talk about this histamine stuff all the time because it's affected me so much. And the amount of people who say to me, well, I don't really know much about histamine, but now I've looked into it and I think I might be suffering. This is very similar to the skin issues I've been suffering with since, for instance, giving birth, for example.
Yeah, yes. Honestly, I have so many of my patients who have heard a podcast or read something that, is out there about histamine, and they start putting two and two together, or they've heard me talk about long COVID, and they thought, hang on a minute. Even colleagues, I've got colleagues contacting me on various, on my telephone, basically texts and things, saying, I heard you speaking, and actually, I think it might be me. Yeah. And one colleague recently said, I think it really resonates with me, but he said, I'm a gastroenterologist and none of my colleagues know anything about this. And I'm like, oh, well, there are one or two gastroenterologists who do know about it and are very proactive with it and recognize it and help treat it and so on. But there's an awful lot, the vast majority, it's not on their radar. And it certainly needs to be, because IBS is such a big feature of histamine intolerance. So they'll see an awful lot of patients with it. For sure. So anyway, the word is getting out more and more. And I feel actually that one of the silver linings of long COVID is it's put MCAS and histamine intolerance on the map. Because we're talking about long COVID, and it's now recognised that long COVID has a very, mast cell activation has a very big part to play in long COVID, that people are starting to recognise MCAS, and so more doctors are recognising it, have heard of it, and are interested and are looking into it, which is fantastic, absolutely brilliant.
And when we last spoke, you'd launched your clinic focusing a little bit more on, I think, long COVID and histamine intolerance. And within a few hours, it was booked out for 6 months. How's that going now?
Well, I had to, unfortunately, close my books to new patients for me to take new patients, because I needed to be able to follow up on all the ones I already had committed to. And whilst it broke my heart to do that, I just did not have enough hours in the day to see everybody who needed follow-ups. And so I've actually closed my clinic to my personal list. But I think I've got 2 doctors starting this month who want to help treat long COVID patients. So we'll be able to open that up again. And we'll have their appointments online, so people will be able to book in with them, which will be fantastic. I've got Dr. Philip McManus, and I've got Dr. Mandel Mehdi coming. So that's really exciting, and I'm so pleased we'll be able to offer more help to more people, which would be brilliant.
That's great. Yeah, and I know you've got some research we were going to talk about in a second, but you were mentioning, in terms of the amount of gastroenterologists who take it very seriously. I did a bit of digging into the history of histamine itself. And in terms of the scientific discoveries around histamine, they're relatively recent. And I sort of quite wanted to ask you about it as someone who comes from a medical perspective, because I have the greatest of respect for people in the medical community. And yet, it's clear that there's still a lot of discovery still to take place around histamine intolerance, isn't it?
Absolutely. So it was really, all the symptoms were put together as a bit of a syndrome, and somebody realized they were, connected, even though somebody might have a, chronic migraine and IBS, or they might have urticaria and IBS and insomnia, all these symptoms. And somebody linked them with histamine. That was in the late 80s, and it was only given a name in the 1990s. And it wasn't until 2007 that 3 case reports were actually written up in the medical journals. So, most doctors will have missed that. And when we have our medical training, we probably have an hour on mast cells and allergies, literally one lecture as a medical student. I remember it well. And it was, 1 hour on mast cells and various allergic responses. And in that lecture, they said, if you have abnormal mast cells, that's called mastocytosis, it's so rare, you will never see a case in your whole medical career, probably. And so, when you're a student and you've got so much to learn, you think, oh, well, great, I don't need to really concentrate on mastocytosis and mast cells too much, because, I'm never going to see a case, and there's so much I am going to see that I really need to gen up on. And then after that, it's sort of just forgotten about, really. Yeah. So it's having a resurgence now, for sure. So, I don't blame doctors who have not heard about it or don't know the latest findings or discoveries. And it's a very early science. There's an awful lot to learn. There's an awful lot yet to be discovered. But I hope that this piques the interest of lots of researchers and people out there who really want to help people. We think as much as 17% of the population has a problem with their mast cells. And so it's terribly, terribly common, really, really common. And so therefore, it's a large proportion of people in the population who are struggling one way or another at various times in their lives, or throughout their whole of their lives, and they need help. So we need to shine the light on it a bit more, I think.
Absolutely. And I think it's incredible to think that, in the 90s, I was at university, definitely suffering with elements of histamine intolerance, and it didn't really even have a name at that point.
No, it didn't. And no one would have picked it up. And it's really funny because sometimes I have patients tell me that, really obvious symptoms and signs. And one lady this morning, bless her, she'd had various sort of calls to A&E. She'd been taken into A&E in ambulances with palpitations, chest pain, shortness of breath, all sorts of things. Checked out she wasn't having a heart attack. And then they said, you're not having a heart attack. We've no idea what was causing this. And again in her notes, there's all these funny symptoms with no idea, low blood pressure, dizziness, fainting, nausea, vomiting, all sorts of things, funny rashes. And nobody thought, hang on, this woman, she's got so many things. Couldn't there be one thing that's causing all of these things? But anyway, never mind. It's going to change. We're going to change it. If anyone is interested, on my website, treatlongcovid.com, when I organized a conference, an international conference on treating long COVID, I had Dr. Lawrence Afrin, who is one of the global leading experts in MCAS, give a lecture. And I was so thrilled when he said he would do it because, he's just superb. And his lecture is on the website and people can watch it. So if you want to have a starting post for learning about MCAS, please watch Dr. Lawrence Afrin's lecture on treatlongcovid.com. It's a really good place to start.
Great. Yeah. So you're doing that, and then you're saying there's some new research which has been exciting.
Yes, it has. So a paper was out a couple of weeks ago that, and I forget who wrote it. I apologize for that. But this lady researcher said that they found when they looked at the blood of patients with long COVID, there were blood clots in the blood. And there were spike proteins in the blood clots. So they felt that the clotting and the release of these spike proteins was continuing to, or these clots and the spike proteins were continuing to stimulate the symptoms in long COVID patients. And there's a clinic in Germany that has been leading on this, and they've been giving anticoagulants and trying anticoagulant therapy in their long COVID patients. And they say they're getting some very good results. They've actually, yesterday I had a communication with them and they sent me 3 papers, which have got a lot of information about this, which I haven't yet read because I just haven't had a minute, but this afternoon it was going to be after this talk, I was going to read it. And they are proposing that people should have, and I'll say it for all your listeners, prothrombin time, fibrinogen, and a full blood count to make sure that those are all normal before they start the anticoagulation therapy, which is fairly standard. That's what you do. And also make sure they haven't got a family history of some odd clotting problems, and like hemophilia or anything like that. And then to give them anticoagulants, and they give 75 milligrams of aspirin, and I would suggest enteric-coated aspirin would be sensible, and a drug called apixaban, which is 5 milligrams twice a day, and that's an anticoagulant. And they say that between 4 to 6 weeks, there's usually seen a big improvement. So wow. I have started. I spoke to 3 patients this morning in my long COVID clinic about it, and they asked me about it because they're very well informed. And we have asked the GPs to do the blood tests, and we've instigating that treatment for them, and then we shall see how they respond and how well they do.
Great. So you work in conjunction with their GPs as well?
Yes, I do. I write to the GPs and keep an open dialogue going, because I think it's really important. We're both helping to look after the patient, and often it's really helpful if the GPs can prescribe some of the drugs. Otherwise, the patients have to pay privately for them all, and some of them can be quite expensive. People have struggled enough as it is, and often with long COVID, they haven't been able to work full time, or they haven't been able to work at all, so their incomes have suffered and so on. And I think it's great if the GP steps forward and says, yes, I'm happy to prescribe that, so the NHS can give them some support and help.
I think what does the head in so much with histamine intolerance, and I remember talking to you about your daughter as well, is there's so many different symptoms. And for me, the primary one was the gut, but you mentioned palpitations earlier on. I remember there was, every time I ate, this is pre-discovering the concept of histamine intolerance, every time I ate prawns or double cream, and it took a while to work this out, my heart rate would just go bonkers. And it would be just like that. Yeah. And I just couldn't. I thought, well, what's going on? I felt like I thought it was anxiety actually.
Yes,
but it was physical. I mean, it was an anxiety, but it was also very physical.
Well, there was nothing you could do. Yeah, there was nothing you could do to turn it down apart from stop eating the prawns. Yeah,
no, exactly. But I didn't stop eating. I used to eat so many prawns.
Oh no. No. But it's the same. Some people, they're having fresh coffee after fresh coffee after fresh coffee, and then of course their diamine oxidase stops working. Now, another interesting thing that I discovered a couple of days ago was that NAC, which is a lot of people are taking, actually reduces your diamine oxidase. So I'm not sure that it's a good thing for people who have histamine issues or long COVID or
What is NAC?
NAC is N-acetylcysteine, and it's a very strong antioxidant. I think it would be better for people in those categories to take glutathione, L-glutathione instead, which is the NAC is made into glutathione, but the NAC itself reduces your diamine oxidase, inhibits it by up to 90%.
Does it?
So that's not going to help matters.
No.
So really important discovery that I think we should be avoiding it if we have histamine issues of any sort, whether that's with long COVID or mast cell activation. NAC is not such a good idea, but L-glutathione is, because that's a fantastic, the strongest antioxidant in the body. And I think that, that's a way of bypassing the NAC, really.
I've taken NAD and I found that I had quite a negative reaction to that.
Did you? Yeah, some people can, yeah.
But I think there's some niacinamide in there, or some B3 or something.
The niacin, the flushing niacin, that releases prostaglandin D2 in the body. So that's not such a great idea, because that was being some long COVID patients, to be fair, were finding it helpful and they were trying to do the flushing niacin, but actually biochemically it shouldn't really be that helpful, because it on one level it's helpful in certain biochemical pathways, but in others it could be actually making it slightly worse, because it releases prostaglandin D2, which is also released by the mast cells and causes some havoc in the body. So it's it's complicated.
It is. The whole thing is complicated. And actually, the one sort of factor that is constant throughout is there's some sort of histamine element in there. And then after that, you mentioned coffee a few minutes ago. I recently posted about coffee and asked people to sort of post their thoughts on it. And quite a lot of people are fine, especially if they have a low mold, low toxin coffee or an organic coffee, or they sometimes they have one a day, or they'll brew it in a certain way. They might have an espresso. Some people are okay with it, quite a lot of people, and so it is just so individual, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you just hit the nail on the head when you said mold. And that's the other thing I ask all my patients now is, do you live in a moldy house? Have you been exposed to mold? Because the mycotoxins are terrible. And once they get into the body, they're actually quite difficult to get rid of. And I suggest people see a naturopath or a functional medicine doctor to really work with them to try and get the mold out of their system. There's a tea called Podaco from the Amazon, which is supposed to help get your body get rid of mold. And I certainly suggest a couple of cups of that a day would be good. But people need to get the mold sorted. They need to bring somebody in, or the landlord in, or whoever owns the house, to sort out the mold and get rid of it from the house. And also air purifiers can help, because sometimes people live in old stone houses and they can't really completely get rid of it. Yeah. But air purifiers will help. And patients have responded to that and said, I'm so much better since we moved house and went to a dry house, or since we got an air purifier, or since we've had the mold treated. The mold causes chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and that can make somebody extremely ill, including affecting their eyesight. And so they walk like they're drunk and they can't really see properly and focus. I mean, it's absolutely debilitating. It's dreadful.
Dreadful. It's funny. I can't remember if I told you about our shed before, but we moved into a new house a couple of years ago. And like many during lockdown, we've converted the shed into an office. But you'll notice that I'm not recording this in the shed. I'm recording it in the spare room. And that is because every time I go in the shed, I feel like rubbish. And it's normally the next day. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that there's mold in the shed, And there's a sort of hollow underneath where in winter I think all the water sort of gathers.
Yeah.
And the shed was already there before we moved in. And I feel awful. And my wife is generally very sympathetic about histamine intolerance, but even she sort of says, well, we've got an exercise bike in the shed and you're not even using it. And I'm like, I know, it's because we've got mold.
You are right. I'm sure you are right. You stick to your guns.
Yeah. But it's mad, isn't it? Because I mean, really, it's invisible. You can't see it. All I know is that I feel rubbish when I go in there, and I just don't go in there anymore.
No, you're absolutely right. Your body is telling you something. We have to listen to our bodies. Tune in, everyone, to your bodies. Your intuition is there. You know, your instinct is right. You can work it out. You can work it out. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I do sympathize with people as well, because the symptoms, I mean, when you told us about your daughter last time, I mean, it's dreadful, the debilitating nature of what people have to go through.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. Oh, some really great news. She's had a baby.
Congratulations. That is wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful. Baby Eva is nearly 6 weeks old today.
Oh, that is fantastic.
And Jessie is so happy, and she's just one of the best mummies in the world. She's absolutely brilliant, completely devoted and besotted with her little one. And it's not been easy, because the baby's had a lot of reflux, and has been cluster feeding. And a lot of women listening will know exactly what I mean when I say that. So it's been hard work, jolly hard work, but really brilliant. And it's so lovely to see her with her baby. But during pregnancy, she was very well, because the placenta makes 500-600 times more DAO, and now she's not pregnant. I think she's got to go back on. She's back on the low histamine diet, and in fact she's coming over tomorrow for me to look after the baby so she can have a rest, because she's feeling a bit low. And I'm not surprised. 6 weeks old, just the sleep deprivation alone is enough to get you on your knees by the time they're 6 weeks old. But anyway, we're all hands on deck. I've read that about, and I bet you're doing plenty of grandmother duties as well. But I have read that about the DAO being produced in extraordinary quantities. People with histamine intolerance who are pregnant don't get it. No, she was completely spared it, and she could eat anything and everything, which she hadn't eaten for probably 2 decades. Yeah. And bless her, and she was enjoying that, but now she's reining it in. And we think the baby might also have the MCAS. So she's got a real incentive to be good with her diet, because she's breastfeeding, of course, and that would, pass through. So being really good. I mean, it is a bit off topic, isn't it? But it is so hard in the early days, and our son's 2 now. But we tried. It wasn't quite so much reflux, but he had a lot of, I suppose it's colic. I mean, colic's a bit of a catch-all term, isn't it? You don't really know what it refers to. Yeah. But we tried everything, and I think Faith giving up gluten maybe helped 5%, and we tried this, that, and the other, and we tried to keep it all natural as well. Although certainly, if we had a second, I think we would probably use simethicone, which we didn't before. But it is difficult, and I do sort of empathise with your daughter as well, and you, because nobody gets much sleep, do they? No, but she's a joy. She's an absolute joy. So worth every second. Yeah, lovely. Yeah. And the goal, I mean, it's interesting you said your daughter hasn't eaten certain foods for a couple of decades. The goal is, if you can, to start reintroducing stuff, isn't it? But I suppose sometimes that's maybe not possible. Well, yes, exactly. And to be honest with you, before she got pregnant, we had got her into such a good, stable place that she was able to eat some things occasionally that she hadn't eaten for a while and get away with it. And the important thing is to try and work out where you think you are on your histamine scale. And that's not easy. I know that's not easy. So, if there's a certain level above which you become toxic, you want to keep your histamine below that level. You don't know whether you're just running underneath toxic or whether you're on the floor, you're way away. Now, if you've been really good, with your diet, and you've had a really clean diet, histamine clean diet for the last, say, week, your level is probably, and you've got your asymptomatic and you're feeling good, your level is probably really, really low, in which case you could probably get away with eating something you haven't eaten for a while and you would really enjoy as a treat, So you might, I don't know, whatever that might be, have an avocado or whatever it might be in your salad to mix the changes, ring in the changes. But you must be aware that your histamine will then have gone up Now, even if you are still asymptomatic, hopefully you're still below the toxic range. Don't get carried away and think, oh, I still feel great and I ate that, so I'll have some more, because then you will definitely push yourself over toxic and then you will have symptoms, and it takes longer to get rid of them than it does to get them. So then you have to rein it in again. But if you're sensible, you can just try and gauge it. So you have, you might find every 3 days you could have something that is off your list normally and get away with it. And then life becomes more interesting, and that's great. Also, we have a lot of people who can come off all the medication, but maybe they stay on the mast cell stabilizer like Jessie did. She was still on the rapacitine, but she didn't have to take the antihistamines every day. But then if she had some strawberries, which she hadn't eaten for 2 decades, she would have had her antihistamines because she knew she was pushing her luck a bit, but she got away with it, So it's about learning how to manage your own body and your particular condition. Having said that, there are some very exciting things on the horizon, and today I took delivery of something very exciting that I'm going to try, because I've got MCAS as well, and I will report to you how I get on with it.
Oh, you can't just dangle the carrot. I need
to
know what this is.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything more. But it looks really, really good. So
this sounds very exciting.
Yes, very exciting. It's been specially formulated to help with the cytokine storm and all the effects of the cytokine storm, both in long COVID and therefore in MCAS. So so I'm very excited about that. We're going to have a go with that.
That's great. If only there were sort of, when you were talking there, because there's this concept of the histamine bucket, isn't there, which is really what you were talking about there, and it's so hard to know. And constantly I'm sort of thinking, oh, I better not eat coconut yogurt. Oh, I can eat coconut yogurt again, and then 3 days later regretting it. It'd be great if you had sort of pea strips or something like that, like you do with ketones, where you could just see how high your histamine levels were.
You know what, Tony, you have hit the nail on the head. I was talking on Monday night at about midnight to a scientist about exactly that.
Right.
So we are trying to think about what we can do with that and how we can, he's thinking about it because he's a scientist and he's the very clever one. But I've told him what I think we need to be measuring, and he's going away to think about it and how we could have some kind of test for patients to do for themselves. Whether it's on a prick of blood or a little bit of sputum or something, that they can check and they go, look, my histamine is really low. Let's go out for a meal. Or, oh no, it's quite high. I'll be good today. That would be so helpful.
Such a great idea.
So we're working on it. Well, somebody's working on it, not me, but I actually sort of instigated the idea. So let's see.
Well, I think you'll make a lot of money if that happens. That's a really great idea.
I don't think I'll make the money. They'll make the money, but never mind. It's fine.
You need 5% for having come up with the idea.
You think so? I'll tell him.
Yeah. What a great idea. Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's probably quite complicated, but, 30 years ago, the concept of a pea strip was probably quite complicated for ketones.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Somebody worked on that. There are some very, very clever people on this planet, let's say that.
Yeah. And even the toxin prevent, I have to say that this summer is the first summer in 25 years when I haven't had hives on my hands and feet, and sometimes on my face as well. And that's a huge change. I mean, literally not one all summer. I think that's sort of low histamine. And then I think the toxin prevent sort of took it to a new level, actually.
Well, that's very significant, isn't it? That's a brilliant, improvement. That's brilliant. I'm so pleased. That's so good.
It is great. I mean, I wouldn't say sort of I'm 100% perfect, sort of not histamine intolerance has gone forever, but that is the best it's been in so long.
Oh, well, that's great. Good for you. Good for you. That's
thanks.
Brilliant.
No, I mean, I'm sort of really pleased about that. And I do think that it is, the goal is to sort of make long-term changes and then, start to reintroduce stuff if you can. But as you say, it might be just on an occasional basis.
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. That's better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. Absolutely fantastic, Tony.
Great. Yeah.
Just interrupting this podcast for one moment to bring you a holiday season special offer from today's podcast partner, because it is definitely holiday season in the US. And in the UK, it's not holiday season, but we're getting well into Black Friday. I know that for certain. And the best gifts are definitely personal. There's nothing more personal than the gift of good health. So a special Black Friday deal for you today on Zestology, and it's a good one. Whether your loved one runs, bikes, hikes, plays sports, or simply wants to improve their wellness, InsideTracker is the most personalised way to make sure their body stays in it for the long haul. And InsideTracker are offering for Black Friday something very special. You can save $200 on the ultimate plan and free InnerAge, which is totally cool. You've got to check it out. It's the most comprehensive way to get personalised insights into your body's well-being or your loved one's body's well-being. So the ultimate plan and free InnerAge, you get $200 off if you go to InsideTracker.com/Zestology. That is a Black Friday deal that only lasts for a few more days. You get 25% off site-wide on the same link, InsideTracker.com/Zestology. And I mean, the thing is, no two people achieve optimal health the same way. And that's why tracking is really important. And that's why personalized insights are really important as well. And you might well have heard me banging on about InsideTracker fairly recently on Zestology. Well, now may be the time to take action because you got the Black Friday deal. $200 off on the ultimate plan and free InnerAge. Plus, you get 25% off right across the site. So it's I've just hit my table. I'm so excited about what's going on. I don't know if you could hear that or not. InsideTracker.com/Zestology to give the gift of personalized health on this holiday season. Now, back to the show. You've got a lot of projects on.
I know, I can't resist it. My husband says, when are you going to stop? and I said, I don't think I can. He actually says, he now admits he thinks I'll never retire. He said, because your work is your passion and your hobby and you love it so much. I can't see you ever stopping. And I in my heart secretly, I think he's right. I go, yes, I will. I'll stop. But I think he's probably right. I don't think I'll ever stop. But anyway. So
if you love it, you've got such a sort of passion for it that it gets you. I mean, that's what gets you up, isn't it? It gets you excited. Yeah, absolutely.
Having a purpose is so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the latest thing that I would love to talk about is the World Council for Health.
Oh, yeah.
So this is really a very, very exciting development. And it's a coalition of over 80 international groups of doctors, scientists, nurses, patient advocates. It's absolutely brilliant. So we've got such a mixed group, including patients, which is lovely because often patients get missed out, don't they, of things, and they don't have a voice, but we want to give them a voice in the World Council for Health. And our motto is there is a better way. Okay, so we're looking at health. We are committed to open dialogue and discussion about evidence and data, which is coming from frontline doctors and nurses and the public. And we want to be held accountable and transparent. We operate in a very transparent way. We live stream our council meetings on Mondays, Greenwich Mean Time, 7 till 9. So everyone is invited to come and watch our live streaming there. But we also record them and they're on the website. So if you've missed one, don't worry. The information is there. And we encourage critical thinking and intellectual curiosity.
Wow.
Is really, really important.
Yeah.
And we've brought together a completely new approach. We feel there needs to be a new approach to health. I think you probably might agree with me on this one.
Yeah.
And we want lots of public participation and engagement. And our ethos is to be very positive, which is fantastic. So whilst acknowledging, obviously, that there have been issues with the way that things have been handled in the last couple of years, we do acknowledge that, but we want to look for ways forward, to how to take this forward, how to make the best of it, and what to do. We recognise there's a need for change in our approach to health in general. And it's not just as of the last 2 years, but prior to that as well. And we want to encourage people to show them how they can take responsibility for their own health, how they can improve their own health, and it boosts their immune systems, and empower them basically to make informed choices because they've got the full facts in front of them. So this is what the ethos of the World Council for Health. So absolutely brilliant. And it's worldcouncilforhealth.org for everyone. And if people would like to register for our newsletter, then they can make sure that they don't miss out on new data, because it's a very fast changing world that we live in at the moment. New data is becoming available all the time from all over the world. And patients don't really know where to look for it. They don't know where to when they want to make a decision during this pandemic, it's very difficult for them to get reliable, open information that's accurate. There's a lot of conflicting information, and some of it is very confusing for people. So we thought we should try and have a website where they can go and trust what's being put on that. And we want to help them to strive for good health and wellness and take a holistic approach so that it encompasses their physical, mental, and psychological well-being. And for us, basically, to sort of step back and remember about the basic principles of good health, good exercise, good body weight, not smoking, not abusing your body, good clean food, organic if you can manage it, not processed, as little processed as possible, and so on. And so we think that we can help solve the current situation by being healthier together, really. So that's our big thing, yeah. So we've got on there various protocols, which I'm sure the listeners will be very interested in.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out for sure. Yeah.
We've got protocols on what you should have in your cupboard, what you should take to boost your immune system, but also what you should have in your cupboard so that if you catch COVID, you can start some treatment immediately, which will make a difference and will help you to improve more quickly and get better more quickly. Okay, so there are protocols, things that people can buy over the counter to help improve their outcomes. And we want people to stop feeling so frightened, because there's a real atmosphere of fear, and it's sort of feeding on itself a little bit, and it's not helpful. It's not been helpful for people. It doesn't empower people.
Absolutely not. In fact, it does the opposite, doesn't it? It just puts your whole body into a sort of stressed state.
Absolutely. It disempowers them. And we want them to realize that there are remedies and treatments can be used to improve their outcomes. And we want them to know what they are so that they can have them at the ready and feel that they can get on and be more positive about their lives and their health. And we've also got information for people, because when they're having to make important decisions about their health, they don't know, again, where to turn for information, but we want to give information about various things for them to make a decision for their families and for them. And we want to improve our global health. I mean, our global health is probably at the lowest ebb at the moment that it's ever been at. And we want to see a way together to get out of this, really. So this is the birth of something rather new and important, I think. And it's an opportunity for change for the better. And we want it to be a positive change, really. So we have, what else can I tell you? My goodness, we welcome everyone's experiences and we want to learn from everybody. We want health to be more community-based and community-driven. So we want patients to be able to drive this, really, and a revolution in attitudes towards that. We've got various campaigns. We've got a Revolution and Health campaign, which is coming up. So people can have a look at our website for that. And we want to give people the tools and the courage and the facts about how to be healthy and live your life, enjoy your life, and get on and improve your health, which is really important. We also participate in international conferences, which are fascinating, absolutely fascinating to hear what's happening in other countries, how their approaches vary, what's working in other countries. There was an African Health Summit. There is an African Health Summit this week, coming up next week. There's a Brazilian Health Summit at the end of November, and the Caribbean Summit is on our website for everyone to listen to. So that one's already been, but it's all there. And then I think the important thing that we've recognized is there is a wealth of expertise and knowledge from all over the world from different frontline medics, and we need a place where we can share that, and show people that we're being proactive about disseminating that information, really. And learning about different approaches and so on. So we are, really, really good. We would love people to sign up to the newsletter, get informed, and become more confident in your health and take responsibility for your health, basically. So it's really good.
Wow. Yeah. Huge congratulations on that. Is this the sort of founding member of this?
I'm one of the founding members. There were about, I don't know how many of us to start with. I'm not on the steering committee because I just could not fit it in with everything else. But the steering committee are superb. We have a steering committee, we have a science and medical committee, we have a research and ethics committee, a legal committee, and a communications committee. I mean, we've got some top people. And it's so we pulled them all together, and they are so active, and we have no conflict of interests. We're all doing this voluntarily, and it's really refreshing. It's really great to work together on this globally, because this is something that's happening globally, isn't it?
Yeah, you talked about global health. I've been reading this book by Chris Ryan called Civilized to Death, and he talks about how hunter-gatherers in times gone by and now very rarely work more than 20 hours a week. And even when they are working, it's sort of like play, and they're hanging out with their mates, and they're all sort of singing and having a bit of a laugh. And then he talks about this instance of hunter-gatherers being brought to London, and they've made friends with some Brit for some reason. They come to London, and they cannot believe that he has to go out to work every day. And they say to him, and he says, well, I've got to pay off my mortgage. That's why I go to work. And they say, how long is your mortgage? And he says, well, 25 years, at which point they all laugh. I mean, it does make you realize that, globally, we live such different lives to how our ancestors lived.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. I've just been asked to review a book that's coming out imminent, almost next week, I think, actually, by a lovely Mexican chap called Gorke Roman. And the book is called To Be Human. And it's not a very long read. It's 96 pages. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I would really recommend when it's come out. His name is spelled Jorge, but it's pronounced Gorke.
Okay.
And Gorke Roman, a young guy, incredibly well researched. He advises on wellness and health, and the book is very similar to what you're saying. Really, this is how we develop. This is what we are. Let's get back to remembering and trusting our instincts about health, and doing some of the basic things, getting some of the basic things right, and then we will be healthier. And it's really, really good. So it sounds very similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, look, really good luck with all your different ventures. What is the website? I've got a couple more questions, but what is the website for the council?
Oh, it's called worldcouncilforhealth.org. Okay,
great,
so www.worldcouncilforhealth.org.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm going to be signing up for your newsletter. Now, before you go, Tina, I've got to ask you, I asked you this before, and neither of us can remember what you recommended, which means that I either read it or forgot. But what is your book recommendation, and what is one tip for living with more energy?
Okay, so my book recommendation is Estrogen Matters by Dr. Avram Bluming and Carol Tavris. Now, this is a really important book for all women who are approaching the menopause or are postmenopausal. And I know that's not everybody who's listening probably, but, some of the husbands may have wives who are approaching the perimenopause or postmenopausal. And it talks about estrogen. And they have looked into all the studies about estrogen, HRT, and safety in women, and the effects of HRT, and how important estrogen is in the woman's body, and looking at breast cancer and the breast cancer risks and so on. And it's a really must read for all women, I would say. It's a fantastic book, and it's so clear. He goes through all the different studies and how they show that actually HRT does not increase the risk of breast cancer, not the HRTs that we use now. It's really, really important for women to be aware of that book. So that's my book.
Excellent.
The energy is develop the attitude of gratitude. Because if you think about what you're grateful for, either last thing at night when you're going to bed, when you're grateful for what happened that day, or first thing in the morning, you can't help but smile, and you can't help but feel loved, and you can't help but feel energized and ready to face the day and do some more, and to appreciate things that are around us and people that are around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. And when times are tough, it's more important, isn't it?
More important than ever.
Yeah.
Look for those things that actually make us feel good and feel loved and give us satisfaction. And it is very important. You're right. Absolutely more important now than ever. And, so yeah, that's it.
Tina, lovely to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the podcast again. I appreciate it so much. And people loved the last one, so I know they'll be looking forward to listening to this one as well. And where can people find out more about you and your work? I know you're not taking on any new patients, but obviously you've got a lot of people seeking you out for information.
Yeah, so I've got two websites. I've got three rather. I've got drtinapeers.com. There's quite a lot of information on there about histamine and about long COVID, and it's also various podcasts and links to various things. And then there's also menopauseconsultancy.co.uk, where women can book in with some of my colleagues. I've got 3 lovely doctors who work with me who are also menopause specialists, who are taking new patients, and they can book online with them. And I am hoping that these 2 other lovely doctors are going to start working in the long COVID clinic. And you book into the menopause consultancy for the long COVID clinic. So we haven't got a separate one for that. But we've also got the treatlongcovid.com, which has got the whole of the conference that we held in June with all the lectures, and people can listen to all of those there. I can see with all the developments and things that are coming along, we might have to have another one and organise another conference at some point. But anyway, that's perhaps for the spring. But those are my sources of information for
Tina,
people.
you are a powerhouse of industry and endeavour. There's always new projects going on. It's brilliant.
Well, I am very, very blessed, I must say, Tony. I've got some of the most inspiring and wonderful people who are in my life. Dr. Tess Lowry from the World Council for Health and various other people, these, scientists who've contacted me, and we're talking about the histamine and the treating the mast cells and the long COVIDs and everything. They're just amazing people. So I'm very lucky.
Good. Yeah. Well, look, it's lovely to talk to you. Good luck with that secret thing you're trying out. And when you're allowed to tell me about it, please do.
I will. I promise you I will.
It wasn't fair the way you dangled that carrot, but you're not going to tell me.
I'm sorry, but it's exciting. It's exciting.
Okay. Well, look, lovely to talk to you, and we'll look forward to an update on that next time.
Brilliant.
That is it for today's podcast. Thank you to Dr. Tina. Thank you for listening as well. Next week, it is I'm very excited about this, my Zestology Books of the Year show. Your next favourite book coming up next week. I'll do this every year. It's like a book awards, but a bit more informal. And I've got 2 categories, non-fiction health and personal improvement, and fiction that makes you feel good, think and grow. And I always try and sneak in one Netflix documentary as well. So that is coming up next week. And before Christmas, we are talking about how to enjoy life offline as well. And also, I am now pleased to announce that the 1st of January, I've managed to book Dr. Stephen Simpson yet again for our now traditional first podcast of the new year. And it is entitled 2022 Your Year. So that's coming up. That is coming up on New Year's Day. 6 a.m. New Year's Day. You'll be up, won't you? You won't have a hangover, will you? No. So that is coming up for New Year's Day as well. So a full programme of guests lined up. And then actually for 2022, we've been refocusing on getting some great guests. And I'm really pleased that in the last couple of days, we've had Dean Karnazes' book, who's been on Zestology before, very well known running author. We did a live with him at Facebook headquarters in London a couple of years ago. And Sarah Ockwell-Smith, the author on parenting, has just booked as well, and quite a few others too. So lots going on with Zestology. I'm very excited about the new year as well and the next few weeks. This show is brought to you by InsideTracker. It is an ultra personalized performance system, analyzes your data from your blood, DNA, lifestyle and fitness tracker. And it's easy to let things slip a bit on the slow descent into Christmas, isn't it? It's easy just to say, okay, and I know in America you've had a lot of holidays over the last few weeks, and that means a lot of turkey and Thanksgiving and celebrating, and maybe your health and wellness goals just get focused on a little bit less. So you can visit InsideTracker.com/Zestology, get 25% off and start tracking stuff. But you also get science-based recommendations to help you get back on track and keep you on track. And I think that sort of accountability is very important as well. As I've said before, I love having sponsors and podcast partners that I can work with and that I believe in. And InsideTracker is one of those. InsideTracker.com/Zestology will get you 25% off. That's a huge discount when you sign up. And as I say, it analyzes data from your blood, DNA, lifestyle and fitness trackers. Right, I'm off to prepare next week's podcast, which I'm very much looking forward to because it's my book of the year show. And it's one I always take a lot of time over. And I, as you know, I'm a voracious reader. And this year I've possibly done more reading than ever. It's up there. And I've read a lot of fiction, which I like to talk about as well, because I do find fiction such a good way to relax and learn as well. And non-fiction too, read some great books this year. So I hope you join me next week, I really do. And until then, thanks for listening to Zestology. If you'd like my 3 Zesty Things newsletter, that goes out every week, and you can go to TonyWrighton.com, which has had a bit of a refresh recently with some new graphics. And I'll see you next week.